Hello and welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Ashley Chiradio, Senior Content Strategist at the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. And today I'm joined by Laureen Aseo, founder and co-CEO of Fresh and Lean, a healthy and organic meal delivery service. Today we're going to be talking about Laureen's inspiration to start Fresh and Lean, how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted her business, how Laureen has dealt with being a leader in 2020, and much more. So Laureen, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I know you came up with the idea for Fresh and Lean when you were cooking healthy meals for your dad while he was sick. I thought you could start by telling us a little bit more about that and how the company was started.
Absolutely. So basically, exactly what you just said. The idea really came from family. I was in the process of going to school for apparel manufacturing. At the time I started the company, I was 18 years old. So I was on the tail end of school. My journey, what I thought my career journey was going to be was to start a line of sustainable clothing. Being an entrepreneur was kind of ingrained in me from a young age. My dad came from a business background, and it's always something that we had spoken about. So with that being said, he at the time was dealing with a lot of health issues, had gained a lot of weight. My parents immigrated from France about 32 years ago now, but the food difference from Europe to here is so drastically different that it really took a toll on his body. Just in indulging in the processed ingredients and not necessarily paying attention to what he was eating, he just contacted a lot of health issues. So we started cooking for him. He went completely plant-based, started cooking meals, and just saw such a dramatic change in not only his health, but he lost a lot of weight. And people started noticing, started asking, hey, what are you doing? And that's kind of how the idea came about. So on the weekends, I would prepare the meals in my one-bedroom apartment. I would create little routes for myself as I delivered them around the neighborhood, we'll call it, and just really realize that it could be a solid business idea when I was getting feedback from the people who were trying the program at the time.
That's great. So the COVID-19 pandemic is still top of mind for most people. Can you tell us how it affected Fresh and Lean? Did you see an uptick in demand since more people are eating at home? Did you have to pivot any business strategies or operations?
Absolutely. So it's kind of a tough one. Yes, we absolutely saw an increase in demand. I think that what is interesting for us is that January, February are always really busy times of the year for us. We always see a really great uptake, and I think a lot of that is because of New Year's resolutions and people coming out of the holidays needing to feel healthier and be healthier, and that convenience factor is something that you really can't beat. So we were dealing with a uptake of demand because of that, and then comes COVID-19. So with that, we did see an additional increase of demand since the safest option was to stay home. And with that said, it impacted the operation, not necessarily because of the increase in demand. The one thing that I've been obsessed with since I started was building an easily scalable model. With that said, it comes with its own challenges, but because of that, we're able to shift and change the way we do things to take in extra capacity in a last minute type of situation. So that really helped with how we were dealing with COVID. I think that what really I don't want to say it was an issue, but I would say just a struggle in how we had to change things was just the whole dynamic as a company. At the beginning, people were really scared. I think the country was scared and they didn't really know how to act or what to do. So dealing with that side of things was difficult. Changing the whole way that the company kind of runs in terms of on our production lines, making sure that there was social distancing, putting up the social distancing barriers so that people had a barrier, between them and the next person on the lines. Our break room, we took out all the tables and had to put stickers down to say, stand 6 feet apart. We can't have you sitting next to each other. Everyone now is wearing face shields, which they didn't do before. We had to increase our security. So when you come into the building, you have to get temperature checked. You have to fill out a questionnaire. So just things like that were more so as a company and for the employees what I would say was a little bit difficult to kind of get used to in this new kind of world that we live in with COVID-19.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump a little bit, but being a leader in 2020 is tough. So could you talk about any strategies you've used to lead your team and keep them motivated throughout this time? We've gone through so many different, almost like lulls that you've had to, I'm assuming, had to remotivate your team at times as well.
Yeah, for me, I think it's been a constant kind of like, what do we try? I think we have to come from a place of compassion. We have to come from a place of respect. And that's really what I've tried to focus on. A lot of people, understand that they are essential workers. We are an essential business, and people really depend on us to get their food and to stay nourished, not only for themselves, but their families. And I think that that's a huge motivator. So communication is huge. I communicate a lot with the team in terms of keeping them updated with COVID-19 updates, telling them, here's what you should look out for, here's what you should do. We have posters all over the office, kind of trying to educate as much as possible. I, for one, have still come to the office since the start of the pandemic. And I think that that's really important as well, because I want them to see that no matter what, we're in this together. I don't want to be one of those CEOs that is at home while the employees are here doing the dirty work, because they are the foundation of the company. And to me, that is super important that they know how much they're appreciated. So I think that my presence here is absolutely necessary. And as a company, one of the things that we did too was we raised all of the hourly employees by $1. And that's forever. When one of the reasons why I really wanted to do that is a lot of companies were doing hazard pay for the essential workers, which I 100% believe in. But to me, it was more so, I don't want to give you, this piece now. I want to show you that we're in this together for the long run. So that's what prompted me to do that as well. And I think just circling back to the compassion piece, people who just don't feel comfortable being here, I have to respect that. And I think that going through and talking with people and understanding where they come from and their points of view, at the end of the day, like, we're humans and we have to be sympathetic to one another. So I try to look at it from a business perspective, but also a human perspective, because I can't run my business without these people, and I want them to feel comfortable where they work. So I think more than ever, 2020 and going through all of this has taught me to be, I don't want to say more compassionate, but just to really listen more and to really understand people's feelings and their fears. And then how do we navigate that and make a more productive work environment?
I love that. And it's something positive that came out of this experience.
Absolutely. I think a lot of things, and I hate to say, because it's been such a weird time, right? Like, no one really knows what to do. We've never really been through something like this. And it has so much negative, but I think everything has positive. That's just the type of person that I am. And so I see absolutely the positive in this. Even as a company, we've had to change the way that and it's little things, like change the way that we run our sanitation team. But there's no reason to not always go the extra mile. And we've had to change the way that we do some forms of communication. We've had to condense meetings. We've had to kind of change our whole outlook on different scenarios and processing. And a lot of those things we will carry forward, even with all of this is done. And so that's why, in every situation, as terrible as it can be, I think that there's always a silver lining. You just have to kind of look for it. And, as terrible and as stressful as COVID has been, I think that it's definitely brought a lot to light that can be useful in the future.
So Fresh and Lean was recognized as one of the country's top meal delivery services, and it's one of the only meal delivery services that was entirely bootstrapped. You guys didn't get funding from outsiders and you're private, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges of competing with bigger companies like HelloFresh, but also the advantages that Fresh and Lean has over them?
Yeah, so I think just to go to the challenges, I think that when you are doing everything yourself and you don't have a lot of funds to back it up, the challenges are that you can't just, how do I want to put it? It's harder, I guess, to maybe get to that point because you can't just throw money at it. However, the one thing that I think is great is that it's taught us to be creative in every single way. It's taught us to be creative in our manufacturing. It's taught us to be creative in our marketing. It's taught us to be creative in our approach. It's also taught me to be extremely thoughtful because if I don't think through every single decision, it could, result in a risk that was taken that will not pay off. And then there goes the business, as an example. So with that said, you know, it was very, very difficult. And there were so many times where, I thought to myself, wow, it would be so much easier right now if I just had, $10 million to just solve all these problems. But on the downside, I would have had to give up, percentages of the company. And now that we're on the other side of this and, the hard parts are behind us, I am very proud to have gone through all of that. I think that we wouldn't be who we are as a company. I wouldn't be who I am as a leader, I think, if I didn't go through all, that hardship and that just kind of taking risks and understanding what that's going to do to us and coming out the other side and thinking, wow, that really did pay off. Or, shoot, that was not a good call, but we can make it work. And the one thing now that I put on to even the people that I bring on board, whether they come from a very corporate background or, another type of startup operation or whatever the situation is that I want to always run the company in a very thoughtful way. So even if we have a lot of funds to put towards a project, I want to find the creative way. And that's kind of the way that I look at everything, is that it's so much more rewarding, I think, to go at it around and finding a creative way. So I never fault people like the bigger companies who have raised, hundreds of millions of dollars, because I think everyone's on their own journey and I respect it. I think that it's very scary as well from that perspective, just as it's very scary trying to build a company with nothing. And I say that because they raise all this money, and they have to spend it. And what happens when they spend it is a lot of times the revenue doesn't catch up and they're put into this situation where it's kind of biting them. And that's why a lot of them are closing down and losing a lot of money. And we've been very fortunate to be one of the only profitable meal delivery companies in our space. But it definitely has been a journey. It's taught us a lot about being resilient. And I definitely think that things would have been a lot easier if we would have had some capital, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you with confidence that I think we'd be in the same place, because I think a lot of things are tempting when you have that pot of gold staring at you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So something else I wanted to talk about is that right now consumers can order Fresh and Lean online, but they can also find its meals in some grocery stores in California, like Whole Foods. Do you have plans to offer Fresh and Lean in grocery stores nationwide eventually, or do you think you will focus on e-commerce?
Absolutely. We are actually in the process of expanding nationwide. So by January 2021, we hope to have a much larger footprint in retailers, and not just Whole Foods, but retailers across the country that are a lot more accessible. I think our obsession and my obsession is, how do we make Fresh and Lean as accessible as possible to as many people as possible? How do we redefine fast food? And redefining fast food to me means changing the perception that a fast food meal is one that comes in a drive-through, when really fast food is a meal that can be enjoyed quickly, which is exactly what Fresh and Lean is. And so with that said, we are really, really pushing to expand our retail footprint nationally. We are hoping that after COVID, one of the things that we experienced with our brick and mortar stores with COVID was that was a little bit different. So pivoting the business a little bit away from retail now into more of the grocer setting is what we're focusing on. And then hopefully once the pandemic is over, we can go back to focusing on our own brick and mortar store growth, which I think is a really, really unique way that people can experience Fresh and Lean and the Fresh and Lean lifestyle.
Gotcha. And so at Women in Retail, we really value mentorship. Do you have any mentors or mentees? And can you talk a little bit about how mentorship has played a role in your career?
Yeah, so I would say my biggest mentor is my father. He has helped me in more ways than I could ever, talk to, just in terms of just daily advice on not only business, but just how to be a good human. I think that a lot of times in business, and I think this comes from a very male driven kind of, I don't know, business culture where it's like, how are you a boss? How do you, become this, I don't know, this badass business woman, all of this stuff. And you lose this aspect of leadership and leading from compassion, which I think is so important, because you could be a leader, but if you have no one to lead, you're not leading. And I think that a lot of people forget about that when they're looking at just, these CEOs, but it's so important to be a CEO with a purpose. And you wouldn't be a CEO without the people that are behind you and helping you. So I think he 100% has been such a guide for me. I've had other mentors as well that have been really helpful in just advice and just kind of walking through different stages of the business as I grow. And as far as mentees, before COVID, I was with a program in a local college here, and I had a mentee that I kind of took on and helped show the operations and just give a little sneak peek to what we do over here. And I would love to do that more as we grow and find a way to really empower women and leaders in every industry. Because I think manufacturing is a very male-driven industry. But I think it's great that people want to jump in.
Well, Lorene, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Women in Retail Talks.
Thank you for having me again. It was great.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.